Kareem Abdul-Jabbar does not have a simple, basic, go-to argument for being the greatest player of all time, or at the very least, he soon will not have that argument. Meanwhile, both LeBron James and Michael Jordan have a simple point-blank argument. Wait. Put your pitchforks down, Kareem fans. This video and the opinion that is going to be expressed in it is not quite as aggressive as the title would suggest. You're allowed to think Kareem is the GOAT. I'm not asking you to change your opinion. I'm not asking you to do that because A, it's not something I would want you to do unless you truly felt it. And B, I've been doing this long enough to know that it is impossible to change the mind of anybody who's on the internet. So with that said, roll the intro, and hopefully this video hasn't been flooded with dislikes. Before I continue on this video, if you end up enjoying this video, then please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this. It only makes sense that if you enjoy this content, then you would like to see more. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference in how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. So first things first, I want to clarify from the very get-go that when I am talking about the GOAT debate in this video, I am talking about the for real GOAT debate, which is to most people LeBron James and Michael Jordan. And there is a subsection of people who say actually Kareem, but most people have Kareem third and LeBron and MJ are in their top two. That's the average NBA fan's opinion. So I'm not wrong in saying the actual GOAT debate is at the very least just those three players. And it's kind of like how when we talk about contenders, we say, oh, that team's a contender, but that team's like a real contender. LeBron and MJ to me are the real GOAT candidates and everybody else is on the outside looking in. But that's the perspective I have going into this. Now, what I said in the intro was a straightforward argument, a simple argument for being the GOAT. And that means that technically there could be a roundabout, convoluted way to view Kareem as the GOAT, but you're not going to simply say one thing flat and then you win. As of right now, you can currently say the most points in NBA history and your argument is done. And hint, that's kind of the main point of this video is that's not always going to be the case, but we'll get to that in a second. If we're going to look at the different things that people value in the GOAT debate, there are so many different things, but if you're going to narrow it down, again, for the sake of just making simple arguments, I would split it down into three categories. Those three are longevity, peak, and moment/story. Those who value longevity really care that you played for a long time and racked up all-time numbers. Longevity fans are more than likely going to be Kareem fans, as he played in the NBA for 20 seasons and is #1 all-time in scoring and third all-time in both rebounds and blocks. Those who value peak care more about what you did in your best years than that you actually had a lot of those years. For most people, that does have its limits, like one great year is not going to overshadow a player that has 10 really, really good but not quite great years. At least that is the case for most people. For some, there's always one crazy guy who believes one crazy thing. Think of a ridiculous opinion. Someone believes it. That's just the way it is. And for this third category, most people do not value moments exclusively, but you'd be surprised how often it actually comes up as a major factor. In fact, I remember up until 2016, LeBron was routinely criticized for not having an iconic NBA Finals moment in his career. Now, I would argue that his block on Thiago Splitter definitely should be considered iconic, but it just wasn't for whatever reason. But in 2016, he got his moment when Andre Iguodala decided he was going to go for a double clutch on his layup. Having those three categories established, you then have to go and pinpoint what player most adequately represents that category. Now, I think for the moment section, even the most staunch LeBron fan would admit that Michael Jordan wins the moments thing. Like, he is just so good at creating highlights and iconic, specifically iconic moments. Call it the media machine propagandizing him if you want, but to me, there's just so many more stories and interesting anecdotes that exist about him, and maybe after LeBron's been retired long enough, such things will stand out as more iconic, and there will be more interesting stories we don't know about right now. But at least in the current moment, Jordan owns that category. Now, I don't think many reasonable Kareem fans would argue that he peaked higher than Michael Jordan. I don't even think many of them, at least not that many, like there's at least a decent percentage that also would agree that LeBron had a higher peak. I'm more hesitant to say that about LeBron, not because his peak isn't comparable to Michael Jordan's, but just that, you know, Kareem fans tend to be older, and older fans tend to disrespect LeBron. So kind of goes hand in hand there, where if you're a Kareem fan, you might also be a LeBron hater. It's more likely than not, which is going to ruin some of my points for them, but you know, it is what it is. Either way, the point is, if we're looking at the peak thing, I think Michael Jordan wins the conversation for the greatest peak in NBA history. Not just in terms of what he was capable of as a basketball player, but especially what he did resume-wise. Like look at him from 1989 to 1998, that span around there. Or if you want to cut it off early and just look at his first three-peat, like, holy, the guy just accomplished so much in such a short amount of time and was such a transcendent talent. I personally think he wins the peak conversation, and the guy who would come in second place would be LeBron for me personally as well. But again, I'm not even arguing that right now. So, just looking at Kareem Abdul-Jabbar versus Michael Jordan, if we agree that Mike has a higher peak, which I think most people would, if we agree that he has more iconic moments for whatever level that actually factors into your GOAT decision, for me it has very little, but it's at least something fun to think about. If you agree that he has those two, then the only way that you could argue Kareem Abdul-Jabbar over Michael Jordan would simply be longevity. And that is where LeBron comes in. Because the reason I emphasize that Kareem will soon have no GOAT debate, and he's not quite officially out of the conversation this very second, is because LeBron hasn't yet passed him for first all-time in scoring. Kareem doesn't own the conversation for the best longevity in league history anymore, or at the very least, he won't soon. Maybe in 2015 that argument would have held water, but LeBron is going into year 19 now. Kareem played 20 seasons. At this point, LeBron James has less than 200 less career games than him, and in LeBron's 18th season, he averaged 38-6. Meanwhile, Kareem in year 18 averaged 17, 7, and 2.5 assists, and even the one thing he should be clearly better at, blocks, he averaged just 0.1 more than LeBron in year 18. So year 18 LeBron is miles ahead of year 18 Kareem. Year 19 Kareem averaged 14 points and 6 rebounds. I think it's safe to say that LeBron can do better than that next year. And hell, if I wanted to get real petty, I would compare LeBron's last 5 years to Kareem's last 5 from season 18 to season 13. Not even using his last 2 years, just the last 5 before the last 2. Those averages come out to 27-8-8 versus 21-7-3. And what I find even funnier about that is that LeBron averaged more rebounds per game at small forward than Kareem did for those last 5 years at center. So old man LeBron is a lot better than old man Kareem. And I bring this up because looking at longevity just simply from how long they played is a flawed way to look at it, because then Udonis Haslem would be one of the greatest players of all time. But no, Kareem was a pretty good player for his last couple of years. LeBron was still a bona fide top 5 player in the league in year 18. So not only is LeBron likely going to play longer than Kareem, not only is he going to eclipse him for #1 all time in points, but he is also going to have been way better in those later years. And again, Mike had a better peak. I'd also confidently say LeBron had one, but we're just leaving that for the sake of argument. And if your reflex is to, again, bring up those all-time records, I would just like to remind you that LeBron is almost all but certainly going to take them. LeBron has to play just 60 games and average just 22 points in this following season to have the record for most points of all time. So LeBron will have that. He will also more than likely retire as third or fourth in assists, depending on how many assists Chris Paul racks up in the remainder of his career. It's possible LeBron passes him, it depends. He's also 10th in steals and likely retires pushing top 5. So he's on all-time list outside of just scoring, just like Kareem. So LeBron will have played longer, will have played notably better in those later years, to the point it more than makes up for the fact that he even hasn't currently done it. But again, I'll just say the soon thing for the sake of not offense. Jesus Christ. Whatever, leave it in. So I would personally argue that LeBron is already the most impressive longevity example in league history. But if you just want to simply say he technically has played less games, give it time. With longevity being Kareem's defining trait, the only way for him to be the GOAT would be if he was #1 in that category. But if he's not already, very soon LeBron will be the go-to example for longevity throughout league history. And as a result, at the very least, Kareem has to fall to #2. And frankly, as someone who values peaks as well, he's gonna have to fall to #3 or #4 because I actually think Magic's better, but that's another video for another day. Also, I didn't even mention the fact that he dominated the weakest era in league history because half of the league was actually in the ABA. So that even invalidates multiple of his MVPs and his peak. But I didn't even bring that up. I'm just to be nice. I've tried to be as charitable as possible here, but it's just not happening with LeBron there. And yeah, I don't know. Why do I ramble at the end of all of these videos? Why can't I end on a solid point? Anyways, I fear half of the people who are actually on Kareem's side of this things will just completely disregard all of these opinions because, frankly, I think there's a huge overlap between people who think Kareem is the GOAT and people who would put LeBron at like 7th all time. So, either way, that's the end of the video. Shout out to Rudy for ending it. I guess he is ending it, but editing it as well.